Let's talk a little about job creation, because I know that's been a focus of your administration. I mean, the port tunnel was part of that agenda. The Marlins Stadium was part of that agenda. Can you talk a little about some of the accomplishments you've done in terms of job creation?
Absolutely. Without a doubt, it's the private sector that's going to get us out of the hole that we're in, not only as a county, but as a state, as a nation. It's the private sector, small businesses, that create jobs. But I truly believe that the public sector has a very important role to play in making sure that we remain competitive, so that when these harsh economic times are over, and they will be over, we live in the greatest country in the world, and they will be over, that we are in a position to be as competitive as we possibly can. And that's why we have focused in the last 6 years and making sure that the airport is second to none. During my administration, the South Terminal has been completed. The North Terminal is going to be completed. Cargo has increased. American Airlines is a great partner. That's why we've invested in our port. That's why the tunnel is important, not only for the jobs that it creates while those capital projects are going on, which is extremely important. I mean, the North Terminal, you'll have about 1,000 people working on site every single day.
Right.
The port, the tunnel to the port won't have as many, but that's about 450 people that will be working on the tunnel. That's why the deep dredge is extremely important. I would say that the dredge is probably the #1 priority right now, and that's going from 42 feet to 50 feet in government cut, so that we're able to get the larger cargo ships, because that's where, I mean, that's going to create about 33,000 jobs.
Right.
And we've been lobbying the federal government. We've been lobbying the governor. He was down here in our port.
Right.
We told him about the importance. Is, quite frankly, when you're throwing around billions and trillions of dollars around, it's a very small investment. It's a very small investment for what you're getting in return. So we're focusing on the airport, on the seaport, and Miami-Dade Water and Sewer,
right,
and the facility that we have there. People forget that South Florida Water Management almost declared a moratorium on building some years ago because we were not recycling enough water and doing enough to reuse the water. And we've invested heavily in Miami-Dade Water, where we got a 20-year consumptive use permit. People forget that. We're invested in transit. The rapid transit system from Arlington Heights to the MIC.
Right.
The MIC, which is unbelievable. The viaduct, which is for cargo at the airport, what the MIC is for passengers. We're investing heavily.
Right.
And yes, I'm very proud to say that I supported what was called the mega plan,
right,
which was a tunnel, which, by the way, a lot of people forget. But there was a question on the GOB bond in 2004 where the citizens of Miami-Dade County were asked to vote yes or no in regards to investing in a tunnel.
Right.
And it passed 65-35 to invest $100 million in a tunnel.
Right.
Now, with $100 million, we couldn't have done much of anything. But then Governor Bush was very big into a tunnel, which was studied forever, for over 20 years, and it was determined that a tunnel was the way to go, to get a better egress and ingress into the port. So I'm very proud that I supported the tunnel. I'm very proud that I supported the Marlins Stadium. A lot of people are surprised, why would you support the Marlins Stadium? Well, in 2003, when I decided to run for mayor, I had to come to, philosophically, I had to decide for myself whether I would support, 2003, whether I would support a use of public funds for a public-private partnership.
Right.
And in 2003, I weighed the pros and cons, and I decided that I would.
Right.
That question was asked in every debate that I was ever in the primary and the general election of 2004, in which there was over 60 debates. And I always answered it the same way, that I would be supportive of utilizing CDT and TDT money, not taxpayers' money. to enter into a partnership with the Marlins in the construction of a stadium. And Museum Park, I mean, we have, I don't know how many acres Bicentennial Park is, but that is prime. It is a prime piece of property
Right.
on the bay, which is really, I mean, nothing has been done there for years and years and years. So to build a museum park with 2 museums there, I mean, next to the Performing Arts Center and next to the American Airlines Arena and next to what's going on in downtown Miami, I mean, it just makes sense. It makes sense, you know, for the county as a whole and certainly the city of Miami.
Well, I can tell you, I mean, in terms of the county's funding plan for the Marlins Stadium, that continues to be a sore point with a lot of people that I talk to. In fact, we could say that Norman Brayman, who's pushing the recall, maybe that is the biggest issue, even though he talks about the budget being the biggest issue. And I think part of the reason is because people don't understand what the takeaway is for the community. I mean, it's in Little Havana being one of the poorest parts of the county, and people don't understand what the big picture is for that community because there doesn't seem to be a clear idea about the redevelopment plan for that community. So what will you do going forward to connect the Marlins Stadium to a specific redevelopment plan for that area?
Well, the plan has always been that the Marlins Stadium would act as an anchor for revitalizing that area,
Right.
for having shops, for having retail. I mean, it's a large piece of land in which the actual stadium is, I believe, about 11 acres, but there's over 30 acres left.
Right.
So it's about, you know, redeveloping that area. You know, a lot of people, I think, and you're absolutely right. I believe that this is why Mr. Brayman has moved forward on this, which, quite frankly, it's irrelevant because the Dade County Charter says that you can recall anybody and you don't have to have a reason.
Right.
So he could do it and not even have a reason.
Right.
So it's irrelevant. But you're right. I agree with you that I believe that was the impetus because he sued. I mean, he sued the Dade County, he sued City of Miami, and he sued the Marlins, and he lost.
But we could look at, let's say, Dolphin Stadium, which is now called something else. Let's just call it Dolphin Stadium for right now. And that, you would imagine, would have been an anchor for redevelopment, and it hasn't been. So you look at Marlins Stadium, the same thing could happen, it seems, and a lot of people have suggested this to me, that the county needs to take a much more ambitious and aggressive role in trying to create a specific plan for bringing developers, if it's private development or a partnership between private and public, but there needs to be a specific plan. So what would you do about that? I mean, if you win the election coming up, what are you going to do to change that situation?
I think that's been in the plans all along, to bring retail, to bring restaurants, to revitalize there. That's always been the plan. I wasn't around when Dolphin Stadium was built, so I don't know what was discussed or not. But I can tell you that the closeness of that stadium, of the Marlins Stadium to downtown Miami, lends itself to a lot of very interesting possibilities where you could build some sort of transit system so that people get off of work. Most of the games start at 7 o'clock at night,
Right.
and they could go there. There could be a number of, or this area right here. You know, you cross the street, and I mean, Mayor Diaz had a vision for what he wanted downtown to look like, and he wanted a pedestrian-friendly city, and he wanted the downtown area to have a nightlife. Go across the street; those things weren't around.
Right.
Midtown wasn't around, and there's a lot of good restaurants around that area now that didn't exist. So, I mean, it's a process of moving forward. You know, the tunnel. One of the things that the tunnel brings around is that you're taking literally hundreds of 18-wheelers, tractor trailers, away from downtown Miami.
Right.
Quite frankly, I mean, if I lived in a condo across the street from the American Airlines Arena, the last thing I want to, and I work near there, so the last thing I want to see is, you know, a dozen 18-wheelers in front of where I live. So, I mean, it's a grander vision. It's a vision of what we want our city and our county to look like, and that's why we're there. I think the Marlins Stadium, the funding for the Marlins Stadium has been one of the most misrepresented and on purpose or not issues that I have ever seen, and I've lived in this community since 1960. But to this day, I get the same questions.
Right.
You know, my property taxes are paying for it. And you could argue that a tax is a tax, so you could use convention development tax, tourist development tax, and sports franchise tax for the convention center, and I'm saying that we can do both. But to this day, that people believe that, you know, my property taxes are going up because of the construction of the stadium. To this day, you'll hear the argument that, you know, you should use this for the school system. I mean, I hear that argument. You could use this for public safety. You could use it. I mean, the use of these funds are regulated by state statute. And yes, you could use it for the beach. You could use it for certain things, but you can't use it for public safety. You can't use it for transit. You can't use it for the school system. You can't use it for a lot of things, and you still hear that argument.
So